Talking the other day about some of my father's experiences, some of his stories he'd tell, being a merchant marine in World War II. And at that time, Gandhi had not taken power in India, and you would go and they had cranes on the ships, but they would still put a walkway up, and people would carry on these heavy baskets all the stuff that they took off the ship, off one gangplank and down the other, for about 3 rupees a day. And it was the first experience my father had in his life of seeing true poverty. Though he'd grown up in poverty, he told me a story about when he was in Sri Lanka and India, and he met this little cripple boy. And I don't mean to call him that, but that's what his profession was. At that time, they took this young man when he was a baby, his parents did, and they bound his feet so that he would not be able to walk. And when he got to a certain age, they removed the wrappings, and he could only walk by scooting his body. And he was a beggar, and that was his profession. And my father met this young man, and he said, asked him about the story, and the young man told him, and my father was very touched by this. And this young man knew a lot about the city, and he gave my father this wonderful tour of it. And my father said, "Roger, I want your address." He says, "I want to send you, I believe it was $20 a month out of his pay." And he said, "I want you to save the money and don't beg." He says, "I want you to start a business." And after so many years, Roger wrote back to my father and said, "Thank you, sir." He says, "I want to thank you very much for what you've done." He says, I've been able to buy a few rickshaws, and I have a tourist place for any sailors that come from the merchants can see the city." And my father had told everybody, when you go to Sri Lanka, go see Raji. He knows his way around. So that simple act of compassion that my father saw at that time is one of my favorite stories, because it shows you just how much we overlook by looking at the simple things in people and looking at what's really important in life.